Hello, my name is Kristen. Welcome back to my channel. It's called FatMakeup. Today I'm doing a video about how to cover up breakouts and blemishes. I'm going to be using all drugstore products. I would say my overall tip for this type of look that you want to achieve when you want no blemishes to be seen, but you don't want to look caked up and heavy, is to use minimal products but with high coverage, so you don't have to keep packing on a bunch of different products. So let's just get right into it. So the first thing I do is and I've done this in a bunch of all my other videos, but I just decided to talk about it more in depth. So I use a concealer to conceal my pimples or my blemishes first before I do my foundation. The reason I do that is because I feel like for my specific skin tone, or I don't know, it feels hard to find a concealer that I can put on top of a foundation that matches that foundation color. And so if I put on the concealer first, I can use the same shade of foundation all over my face and I'm all one shade instead of little spots of concealer. Also, I just feel like it covers better. So first I'm going in, I've used this before. This is the Maybelline Master Conceal Concealer, so I'm using my finger. I'm just going to dot it on the places I feel I want to cover. So it's usually for some reason on my left cheek. I don't know what that means about me or my life, but that's just where I get the most breakouts. Some on my chin. My friend and I were talking about this yesterday and I was like, dude, I'm breaking out so bad, I just don't even want to go into public. Like, I don't want anyone to see me. I just feel so gross and ugly. And I know we all feel that way. We've all been there where we just feel so gross because of our breakouts and we can't control it because they're just coming. But we still have to go about life. We can't just like lock ourselves away. And so there are some days where I'm like, I don't care. This is who I am. These are my breakouts. Take it or leave it. But then there are other days where I just really don't want to be ugly. I'm just kidding. That's how I feel, but breakouts don't make you ugly. But you know, some days you just feel that way. I'm taking my Real Technique beauty sponge and I'm just kind of like really lightly tapping in the concealer. I'm trying to diffuse like the edges of the concealer as much as I can while keeping most of the coverage there. It's honestly crazy how crazy I look right now. I bet when people watch me do my makeup in real life, they're like, are you gonna just go out like that? So the reason I use the Real Technique sponge to blend out the concealer on my face is because I feel like sponges like soak up product, and since we're gonna add another layer on top of the concealer, I don't want like a thick layer of concealer, which is why I'm going in with something that's high coverage. The Master Conceal Concealer is the most high coverage drugstore concealer that I've ever used, maybe even just concealer in general. So the next thing I'm gonna go in with is foundation. And I want to use a high coverage foundation, but that looks really beautiful on the skin. That's not like cakey. And I'm using drugstore, so I'm doing this CoverGirl Healthy Elixir foundation. Here we go. I love this foundation. I feel like it gives a really, really good coverage and a good finish. The only thing is they like barely have any shades. Even this shade you'll see is a little bit too dark for me, but I just bring it down my neck because I love the finish so much and the coverage is just like worth it. So what you want to do, since you already have your blemishes mostly covered, you start out with a little bit and then if you need more, add more. When I'm trying to keep all the coverage on my face, I won't use a beauty blender to apply my foundation. I'll use a foundation brush because a brush, you can really buff it out and get a thin layer without absorbing the coverage, if that makes sense. I feel like beauty sponges, like sometimes that's a good thing. You want it to absorb some of the product so you don't look heavy or cakey, but for this, like I think that this brush does a good enough job of blending it out and making it so it doesn't look cakey, but it keeps the coverage on my face. So this is the e.l.f. foundation brush. It's the one I always use. So when I get to the parts of my face that have most of the blemishes, I do the buffing motion first, but then afterwards, without adding any product, I just use whatever's left on the brush. I kind of like pat over it because I think that deposits a little more product and it keeps the coverage there. This motion kind of moves stuff around a little bit because it's really buffing it in, but this kind of just places the product where you want it and leaves it there. Another thing I would say is place more product and more coverage where you need it, but not over your entire face. Like my forehead rarely breaks out, so I usually use a little bit less foundation on that part of my face. This foundation just like makes you glow. I love it. So as you can see, I've just like where I've been feeling like I need a little more foundation, I've been adding on more. If you start with a bunch, you can't really take it off unless you wipe it all off. So it's best to start with a little bit and then build it as you go. So I like how that looks. I feel like my blemishes are covered enough, but I'm gonna add a tiny bit more just so that I have like flawless coverage. So once I add more, I'm gonna do the tapping motion that I was talking about before, because it's gonna keep that foundation where I placed it, so it's gonna keep that coverage there. But as you can see, my face, it doesn't look cakey, and it doesn't look as if I'm like really trying to cover pimples. It really just looks nice. Okay, now I'm gonna go back in with that Maybelline Master Conceal and put that under my eyes. Okay, now that I'm looking really pale, I'm going to set all of these creams that I have on my face. I'm going in with my Fit Me Loose Finishing Powder. And I'm going to use my Beauty Blender for that as well. So setting your entire face is also a really important part of keeping blemishes covered, because once you go in with your bronzer, if you're blending over where you've covered up your blemishes, if you don't set it with powder, then the products, the foundation are more likely to move and be rubbed off while you're blending your bronzer. I'm going to use the same powder, and I'm going to go in with a big fluffy brush. I'm going to kind of like dot it, and then blend it on there. Okay, so now I'm gonna go in and bronze, and I'm gonna use a big fluffy brush as opposed to like this dense sort of like contour brush that I sometimes use to bronze. And that's because the density of that brush is more likely to move the product around. Like I said, we're trying to keep all this product in place. Anyways, so I'm gonna use a big fluffy one, and I'm gonna go in with Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer, and this is a brand new one that I haven't used yet. Look how beautiful it is. Is it focused? It's just beautiful. That pattern, I love it. It smells great. Okay, so I'm just gonna dip in. And so I kind of make sure that I kind of have like quite a bit of product on my brush so that I don't have to push as hard. So the product kind of just goes on easily. I just want to keep everything in place. How many times am I gonna say that? I'm just pale as paper. Okay, I'm gonna go finish the rest of my makeup off camera and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and as you can see, I have the rest of my makeup on. So I really hope you learned some tips and tricks about how to cover blemishes, even when you feel like you don't want to leave your house and you don't want to go outside because you just you have these blemishes and you can't control it. I hope that this helps a little bit on those days that you feel like you want to cover them up and you don't want to rock your blemishes. If you liked this video and if you like me and my channel, please subscribe and press the like button down below and leave any comments about what you want to see next. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.